Welcome everyone to Mailfuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 15. It's called Paradise. So spoilers for the episode as always. This one is about Sisko and O'Brien, who end up on a planet where for some reason, it's explained by the end of the episode of course, but for some reason, nothing electrical works. All their tech immediately just dies. And they discover a colony of people who have been living here for 10 years. And perhaps the most interesting thing, at least initially, about these characters is that they're not some like typical group from a Star Trek episode in that, oh, they just find like a little culture that's here. No, these people were in the rest of civilization with space and, you know, ship travel and all that. They've just been here because of
the uniforms and everything.
Yeah. I mean, they've changed a little bit. They noticed some changes in the 10 years, but they remember what current civilization is. They've been here because they can't contact for help. Well, to an extent. So we'll get into it. But it kind of goes down a path, though, where the leader of this group is kind of a nature first hippie kind of character who loves the fact that they don't have technology and really doesn't like the idea of any other ships coming to rescue anyone. And some conflict naturally arises from that with Sisko. I think O'Brien being the second character to be here for this makes a lot of sense because he's the engineer. He's the most tied to technology, so he feels the most robbed of his talents here in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think the only other one that would have worked quite nicely probably would have been Bashir, because there's quite a few injuries and medical crises in the episode.
That's true. There is a moral debate about what to do when someone gets sick. As well, so you're right, Bashir would have worked as well, but we've had a Bashir and O'Brien team up. They would have worked for this as a pair, but I think Sisko being defiant as a leader, I think is obviously a big thing this episode's doing. So we'll get into it. Connor, what did you think of Paradise?
I think it's fine. I like its ideas more than I do I think the execution overall. I think I get what it's doing, but I think there's a point probably about, I don't know, a third in, just over, where you kind of see where this is going, and it takes a long time to get to the final stuff, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like a lot of ideas in this episode. Like I said, I felt very refreshed when these characters they run into know what Starfleet is, and it felt fresh because so often it's some culture who, you know, we can't bring up the Prime Directive or like break that because these people don't know anything. No. We can talk about that stuff with these people, and that was instantly more interesting. But I think there's just enough like things that don't quite click, or enough little things that add up that I just didn't feel in love with it by the end. There's one thing in particular at the end that really annoyed me, because I like the general ideas of what it's playing with, but I think it'd have been more interesting to me if the character, this woman who runs this group, Alexis, I think she turns out eventually to have sabotaged this group's ship to land here, and not only that, it's not even a natural phenomena. She's got a device that is blocking all electricity buried out in the forest that's doing all this, so she's behind everything. I think it would have been more interesting to me if we didn't have those reveals and she just loved it, like, from her time here, and she was willing to go above and beyond to defend it in that way. I think once it started getting into, she's secretly planned this the whole time, it started to get a little bit murky for me, especially since the ending where every single one of them chooses to, well, I say everyone chooses, throughout the episode, it is brought up that if rescue does come, it's going to be up to all these colonists, we'll call them, whether or not they want to leave or stay here in this kind of like Amish style society that they've kind of built for themselves. But at the end of the episode, when everything's kind of resolved and Sisko's like, okay, we've got comms back on, blah, 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 we're going to beam up, like, so you're clearly coming, you have to actually like go and answer for your crimes for everything you've done, because people have died here because you've refused the medical treatment because all this, so you're coming with us. But everyone else obviously is free to choose. And there's the one guy who's been kind of the friendly guy talking to O'Brien throughout the episode, who's like an ex-engineer. He basically just says, this is our home, we don't want to leave. And as the camera was cutting around the group, I was like, I don't think I believe you that everyone here doesn't want to leave. In fact, there was one particular extra with a hat on whose facial expression made me laugh. I cracked up at this intense stare that he had. He was like,
Yeah, this was pretty rushed. I think if you'd cut out 5-10 minutes from earlier, I would have liked this to have a bit of debate at the end of like, well, do we all want to stay or not? And maybe you do have to do kind of a like it's weird because like if too many people decide they want to leave, the ones who stay might struggle as a society.
Yeah.
But like you can't do if you do a majority rules sort of vote, and you know if you vote just even if you want to leave but the majority want to stay, you have to stay anyway. Like that's like I don't think Cisco would have let that go.
No, I think maybe either they have to talk it out and like the ones who want to stay convince the others to make that choice, or I think you do have to have this splinter ending where like half of them are like, no, we want to go. Like we hate. I mean, we've made do. Like we're not mad at the time of spent here, but we're only making do because we were trapped. Like we want to go back to civilization and have other things. So off we go.
Yeah. There was a man locked in a box in the heat for like a day because he stole a candle, and they're all like, yeah, we just want to carry on like this.
Yeah. I think that's maybe the big thing is that it didn't do enough to convince me why they all wanted to stay. Alexis talks about how, it's a perfect society because we've stripped away everything, so we really depend on each other, so we care about each other more, and community, all that. She says all these things, but I don't know if we get enough good examples of these characters helping each other to like show, this is why they would want to stay.
Yeah, there's a splinter of an idea in there, just like the guy being like, well, this is kind of our home now. Like it's been 10 years. Going back, that's a big deal. We got comfortable here almost. Like there's enough there to just start that conversation. But yeah, it really need to delve into. I think ultimately all the bit there's the point where Alexis' son points out that she never let him eat replicated food.
Yeah.
Even before all this. And you kind of from that point on you go, okay, she's behind it. And then there's a long time then before the ending where it's actually revealed that she is officially. I think you could really condense that down and improve the pacing because that stuff like drags, and two, then you've got time to have this debate, which is probably what it would have been the most interesting part.
Yeah, also the other thing is that they all find out she's behind it right before they make this choice, and I think there needs to be more room for that to breathe and let them like react and get angry and come to terms with that in some way.
Even if they do decide to stay, which again, I can see a version of this episode where that's still a reasonable choice by the end. They've just been like had their whole lives for the last 10 years just were a lie basically because of this. Like that's kind of a big deal.
I guess that's the thing, yeah. Like she says, it was a lie so that we'd all discover like all these other truths about ourselves. And even if they think, okay, yeah, we have actually like improved in a lot of ways by being out here, like I still think that maybe this is just a personal thing, but I just morally, she is wrong. She forced them into this. There is no like what she has done here is bad regardless of the outcome.
It is, which is why, and the show agrees with that fundamentally, which is why they take her off to arrest her. But everyone else there hasn't done anything wrong, right? They don't need to be punished for what she did. And if they choose to stay, which, again, there's enough there that I could see that argument playing out. Again, I don't think it actually does enough with it, but...
Yeah, it needs to actually play it out more, though. It needs to actually have them bring up arguments and basically say, okay, you know what, we do actually like being here, we do actually like this life that we've got, and because at one point they even posed earlier on, like, if we do come and get rescued, before things get more murky, where they even say, I think it was either Alexis or one of the other characters says, and then we'll maybe have to decide if we do want to reestablish, like those of us who stay, do we decide to actually have communication with the outside world? Do we set up, comms so we can contact for help to another planet or a station if something goes wrong? And at the very least, maybe like extend that all of. I mean, admittedly, now that they know they're here, I'm sure Cisco's going to put it in the old Starfleet journal, and like people will come out and check on them every so often to make sure that they're not doomed or whatever. But I think the ending, it feels like it spends a lot of time on stuff that's not that interesting, and then rushes all of what could have been an interesting debate at the end.
Yeah. So I said there's a lot of interesting ideas in this episode where I like what it could be, but ultimately it's just kind of okay.
Yeah. I think as well, like, I almost think that if you're going to do the whole thing where she's behind it all, but it is this perfect paradise, maybe don't have her act like such a like villain at points. Like, you know, the putting people in the box, the seemingly sending the one woman to seduce Cisco, like, hey, I'll give you a wife if you choose to stay here and take off the uniform. And which that actress, by the way, was in Babylon 5, funnily enough. I recognized her face and went, oh, that's a funny coincidence. But you know, like Cisco's like defiance and being like, no, I'm not taking my uniform off. This means something to me. No, we're not doing it. Like,
oh yeah, she gets outright evil manipulative to make him, to try and like break him. Like she's like, I'll put you in the box with no water, but if you take off your uniform, you could just have some water. It'll be fine.
yeah, she even leaves him alone with the water and he still doesn't drink it. He just gets up and walks back out to the box. And it's a nice enough moment, especially since the whole thing is like, it's actually O'Brien who, again, wasn't actually doing anything wrong. He was just trying to get tech working because he's O'Brien. Why wouldn't he be doing that? But she takes that as like a breaking of their rules. This is a crime. But because he's working under Cisco, she's like, no, you have to serve his time in the box. So obviously O'Brien's not thrilled about that either. So it's I feel like it's almost like some generic TV drama they try to milk out of it gets in the way of the more interesting science fiction that they could have been doing with it, which I think this show in particular tends to do a good job of balancing that, or doing more of the good part. If nothing else, this episode just feels a bit more weighted towards typical TV episode tropes as opposed to the interesting stuff.
It is, and there's no B plot to try and like get something else out of it, like to throw in some often you'll have like a comedy element on the B plot, for example.
Yeah, no,
that doesn't exist.
The closest you've got is just like the two characters looking for them when they've went missing.
Yeah,
and that's
the closest you get to a comedy beat is the major or general, whoever it is, like making an excuse to come to the station because he actually just wants to play a game of poker with Cisco.
Yeah. The episode starts with Cisco and O'Brien talking about how Jake's like talking about what his Starfleet career might be, and he got really bad test scores on his engineering stuff. And O'Brien reveals that he also did very poorly on that when he was actually studying, and it wasn't until he was in the field that he ended up impressing someone that he kind of started to learn how to do all that stuff, which isn't that important. It's just a little character bit, but it's just
no. But it just proves that even in the future, you can just learn on the job. Don't worry about it.
I mean, how many jobs actually require, or I'll put it this way, how many jobs do people go and work at and feel like, oh, what I learned when I was getting a degree is actually helping me in this job?
I would say probably 90+% of all jobs can be taught on the job.
I agree with that. I think there's some, general, maybe kind of like broader ideas that maybe you had to learn first before you went in to do the job. But I think all the specifics of actually doing the job, someone just teaching you how to do it is the way you probably, is you learn it. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and even in the future, that's still true. Even with fancy space engineering.
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, as far as anything else goes, like, obviously visually, it's not exactly the most exciting episode because it's mostly just next to some trees and like an old shuttle.
It's a mild jungle planet.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. So you don't have a lot of variety in that sense. I'm trying to think if there's anything else really that interesting going on other than the main thing, but there isn't.
I've read on this because it spends so much time dragging it out that there is nothing else in the episode.
Yeah, because it's almost like when they first show up and some of the characters are like, oh, hey, who won the baseball last season, or what, what's this, or a roundabout, what's that, or a runabout? It's like, oh, it's a new ship they commissioned 3 years ago. Oh, that sounds exciting. Tell us more. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting, and it's almost a shame that Alexis immediately sort of starts to like hey, let's not talk about the outside world. We don't do that here.
Yeah, and I feel like that stuff should have been brought up again at the end when they're like, "Oh, well, we're going to stay." I'm like, "Yeah, but do you want to maybe stay with some communication? Just receive some news, get the sports scores, like a bare minimum."
Or at the very least, like, one of the debates that comes up in the episode is that a young girl is dying because there's just a bug. There's a bug that can bite you and it's lethal, and they've not figured out a way to treat it yet. And they've been trying different leaves and ointments and things that they can find in the forest, but nothing's worked. And it's like, oh, well, if we had, like, we don't even need Bashir. If we just had, like, access to the ship, we'd have a quick little doohickey that would just fix this. It wouldn't be a big deal. And she dies. She ends up dying. They ring the bell and she makes the announcement. At the end of the episode, it really does feel absent that this, like, obviously, yes, they bring up that people have died because of what this woman has done in this community that she's forced to exist. But it is kind of weird that even just the subject of, well, we're not letting you stay here without access to at least some medical, like, avenues, so some way to call for help or something that can deal with these things. Like, I don't know. It just the episode makes such a big deal about it. It makes such a big point of, like, them wanting to intervene and do something, and how Alexis, like, shoos them away and says, "No, we must not do that." Yada yada yada. Because it really made her look very. Because the way she responds to it when they try and, like, offer help is she's like, "Oh, that won't be necessary. Like, we'll find the right thing. We're getting close. We'll get the right leaf, the right plant, or whatever it is, and we'll solve it. We'll solve it." She's very nonchalant almost about it. It's not even like she's just trying to, like, lie to them. And then obviously the girl dies, and it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of a bummer. Like, she's dead.
Maybe next time.
Yeah. It made her look like she was very uncaring. And I don't think the end of the episode wants me to think she was uncaring. I think the end of the episode wants me to think that she did genuinely care about these people and thought this was a great idea.
I think she cares more about the idea of the society than about any other people, though.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, I agree with that.
So it's not that she doesn't care, it's just that she doesn't care about them on an individual level.
Yeah. This rings a bit hollow at the end, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the only problem. I do think it drags out some of the early tension a bit in a way that I don't think is satisfying. I think she's too obviously the villain of the episode. Or maybe villains, well, maybe it's a strong word. Antagonist, certainly. But
definitely, yeah.
But I do think that certainly by the end, I had a lot of trouble accepting kind of just how quickly people... They didn't even decide. Like, one guy speaks and the rest of them just stays... They don't even nod in agreement, I don't think. There's not even, like, a sign of, like, they agree with them. It's just... He's made the choice for them, so let's beam us up. Off we go.
He is new Alexis.
Apparently... And we end ominously on two children who are left standing looking up, who I think clearly are like, what's up there? Maybe we do want to go to the stars. Maybe that does sound quite good. Or we've been damned by our parents to stay in this shithole.
Time is old. Like, it's always been the case. Like, even in the future, well, you're stuck where you are.
And then one picked up a broom with the force. It was a really weird moment to end on, but...
Yeah, well.
No,
I'm not biting.
I was going to say, I was making a silly little reference.
I'm not taking the bait.
Bait? What bait? What can I possibly say?
I don't know with you, but I don't want to know.
I was just saying it reminded me of the young kid from The Last Jedi. That's all I'm saying.
I know that's what you're saying, but I also feel like if I'd said something, you'd have made some sort of comment.
Like what?
This is what I want to get into.
But I don't have anything in my head, which is why this is such a weird conversation to have, because I don't have anything planned.
I'm just used to you sniping at Star Wars at every opportunity.
Like, it's not my fault. It puts itself in the crosshairs at every opportunity it gets.
Well, not every opportunity. Just a lot of them.
Oh dear. Yeah, probably the best thing about the episode is probably the performance from Sisko, and to an extent O'Brien. We get O'Brien in his undies this episode.
Very briefly, yeah.
He has to trick Alexis's son, who's trying to hit him with a bow and arrow, and he tricks him by hanging up his uniform on a branch. and then comes out and gets him from behind. That sounds bad. You know what I mean?
And then makes a quip about how he got his uniform off.
Yes. And we say undies. I mean, it is undies, but it's like pretty heavy duty because it's like a shirt in
It's like a full bodysuit.
Yeah, it's like he's wearing a lot under there. But hey, like we've had topless
chilly in space,
of course, but we've had topless O'Brien already this season in the tennis or the squash episode. So the ladies who love O'Brien are getting a lot of attention this season. So, you know,
I'm sure there's lots of them.
Worth mentioning. Yeah. So, yeah, and obviously it's a very limited character count. We only get a little bit of Dax and Kira who are looking for them, but all the other characters are missing for this episode, which is maybe also part of a little bit of a shame because, I mean, if I get no Odo and Quark, I'm a little grumpy.
It's always a little bit of a lesser episode without them.
Yeah, a little bit in the grumpy side. So yeah, this was a weaker episode, but there's like ideas in there, there's noble intentions, and I just think it doesn't quite come together on a script level, which is a shame. But certainly, it could be worse. We've seen worse Star Trek episodes.
A lot worse, yeah.
Yeah, so that is Paradise. Obviously, we'll be back to Next Generation for the next Star Trek video, but when we come back to Deep Space Nine, we'll be doing an episode called Shadow Play. Here's a description via IMDb. Odo and Dax investigate the mysterious disappearance of people from a village. Kira tries to keep a close eye on Quark, while Vedic Farrell unexpectedly visits. I was second guessing my pronunciation of Vedic, which is why I paused there. I know who that is though. I remember the lady. I remember the character, but
yeah, Kira keeping an eye on Quark could be fun.
But I wonder what's he done? What did she suspect him of? That's what I want to know. It doesn't matter.
No, but it's gonna be gold.
But it may be funnier depending on what it is.
That's true.
That's why I'm asking. But hey, well, there's 3 plots listed in this one, so we're definitely getting more than one plot next episode. So we'll see.
One of them is bound to be better than this.
But there you go. That is our Deep Space Nine discussion. We'll see you next time for TNG. But let us know what you thought of this one in the comments. Like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. You can support everything over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, or you can support via YouTube membership or YouTube thanks. Any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for joining. We do appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and somewhere out there, Odo's puddle abilities are not impeded by any electrical dampeners. If anything, he is safer with no electricity going around. So Alexis is just lucky that he wasn't here, because he would have neutralized everyone.
I think he conducts electricity more in puddle form.
I would think so.